live session with me. What's my name? Laurent. Today to talk about some of the questions that you sent me earlier today around Britain and America, because that's what we talk about on this channel. And it's what I'm going to be talking about today. Thank you for those questions that came in prior to this live stream. I just figured it's Friday night. I've got nothing going on and I'd like to talk to you fine people. So welcome to the people that we have on here right now, mostly in America by the looks of it. So that's great because I'm also in America. But as an American citizen who is also a British citizen, I thought, I'm well placed to answer these questions, especially since I've been doing comparisons between the two countries for the past 9 years, he says, looking at his invisible watch. Can everybody hear me? Firstly, that's the first thing I need to check out on this. I'm guessing so. Otherwise, mostly you would have just been, we can't hear you, Lawrence. And nobody's done that so far. So I'm going to dive in just a moment. But if you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe to Lost in the Pond, then do that now. I haven't got any sort of fancy way of bringing up the subscribe graphic, but just subscribe. And I am going to get into the questions. They came in on Facebook, on Twitter /X, whatever it's called these days, Patreon and YouTube. And so I'm going to draw from those what we have, and it's going to be fun. As we go along, you can, of course, use the super chat, which brings up a big, colorful comment, and it gets my attention and the attention of everybody in the vicinity of this room. I'm the only one in the room, so that doesn't mean anything really. So yeah, feel free to do that, and we will just go. Oh wow, it went from 88 people to 300 in the space of a few minutes. All right, I'm going to pull up the questions. Hopefully, since I'm going to another tab, it doesn't lose the live stream. That did happen to me once. It'd be really bad if it happened again, and unprofessional on my part. First question. This came in from Elisa on Patreon, and Elisa asked, what UK chain store /eatery do you wish they would develop or would develop a larger presence in the US? And I had to think about this for a moment because obviously I've not lived in Britain for a while. But the one that came to mind and seems to always come to mind when I'm thinking about that is Greg's. For those of you who don't know what Greg's is, it's basically a pastry shop that does sausage rolls and other stuff, but I only ever get sausage rolls, so I can't speak to the other stuff. I'm sure there's some Cornish pasties, things like that, but the sausage rolls are definitely the thing to get. And I missed that. I think I'd heard a while ago, maybe they opened one somewhere, perhaps New York City, but I don't live there, so I can't get there very often. Whenever we go back to Britain, we do make a point of visiting a Greg's or 7, usually about 7 or 10 Greg's, and we come back about 5 pounds heavier, which is weird because I eat a lot in America, obviously, calorie-wise. It's hard not to sometimes. Next question. This is from Samantha on YouTube. That's where we are now. That's the platform we're on. So thank you, Samantha, who asks to add to the ongoing online discussion about heat waves in the UK, because we've just had one in the UK, versus the US. What temperature do you set your thermostat for air conditioning in the summer? And it can vary depending on what Tara wants, my wife. I usually go for 68, but we have 3 floors in the house. This is the Midwest. We have a basement. I'm actually speaking to you from the basement right now. And because we have 3 floors, the temperature, no matter what we set it to, can vary from floor to floor. So because she does a lot of her work upstairs, she likes to set it quite low, 64 degrees, which I think's a bit cold. I think it's a little bit cold. When I'm upstairs, it's fine, but I don't have a lot of cause to be up there. When I'm on the middle floor, it's all right, but I have to put on a cardigan. And when I'm in the basement, as I am right now, I'm freezing my absolute arse off. That's why I've got a space heater under the table. Genuine. I can't lift it up, otherwise that'd be a fire hazard. But it's right here under the table. It's warming my legs up. So that's useful, but it's not really doing much else. Up here, I am absolutely freezing, and that's why I've got my special mug of hot coffee. It's got an L on it that stands for Lost in the Pond and Lawrence and low temperatures, apparently. So that's typically what I do. Anybody else, let us know how you set your thermostats if you have one. Typically, of course, people in the US do have air conditioning. But of course, the temperatures vary throughout the land. So you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, this summer, Chicago's been really not that hot. It's, in fact, the winters were not that cold either. It's been a strange year. I'm not complaining, but it's been a strange year. But let me know in, say, the South, where you have just hot and sticky weather at this time of year. What do you set the temperature at? 68? 68's perfect. I'd say 68 is the perfect temperature just in general, right? If you go outside, if it says on the weather it's 68 outside, which it does that here during spring and autumn, and partly this year during summer, it's been really, really bizarre. But that I think that's the perfect temperature. I really do. And I think that because I grew up in England and got used to that sort of temperature at this time of year or just earlier on. Yeah. So anyway, next comment. This comes from Dan on Facebook. This is a good one. Why? Why are roundabouts so popular in the UK as a way to connect two or more roads and so unpopular in the US? Well, so that's a good question. And I think there is some truth to it that roundabouts do seem to be per square mile more popular in the UK than they are here. That's not to say you don't have roundabouts in the US. I see them fairly commonly. But they stand out here when you do see them because you have to drive a certain amount of distance before they show up. And I would say maybe the reason that America hasn't quite embraced them to the degree that the British people have is that America doesn't like non-rectangular objects. We've been over this. It's all about the rectangles. So when you see a roundabout, it's just confusing to most American heads. I mean, since I became a citizen, even I now look at a roundabout and go, oh, hey, what's this one-sided shape in front of me? I don't know that. They even tried to do that, of course, with football. Take away the rounded ball and make it more that shape, so that they'll keep going and they'll turn it into a rectangle and break their ankles. So I think that there could be some truth to that. Probably not, though. I think that maybe it's that American roads were constructed in such a way that didn't quite need them, or Americans are just confused by them. I don't really know. But rectangles is the answer I'm going with. I'm just going to check back in with all of you, see how you're doing. How are you doing? Looks like we got a few super chats. Thank you to all of those, or for all of those. We've got one here from Nabikus. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Would it be possible to make a future video about the differences between the house buying process in America versus the UK? I plan to move to England in a few years with my British wife. Excellent question. I thought about a video similar to that when I bought my American house. The only thing is, I don't have a comparative experience to compare it with. Redundant use of compare there because I did say comparative. Never mind. So I don't have any experience of buying a house in Britain, but that doesn't mean that I can't research it. I would just have to be brave and go in there and make out that I understand stuff. Before I bought my first American house, which, by the way, was just over a year ago now, about a year and a half ago, I had no idea what any of the terminology meant because I'd never needed it. When sort of securing your mortgage and all of that, and you go through all of the different terms, some of which I've already forgotten. It was the most, it was the biggest blur of my life that month because I was becoming a US citizen at the same time as buying a house and lots of other personal stuff was happening. And I really don't remember most of the process, to be honest. I just remember there was a lot of paperwork to file. Thankfully, I live in an age when I was able to do that online. So the American housing market and the processes through which you go to purchase a house, I'm sure they are vastly different, but I don't, off the top of my head, know all the ins and outs. And we got a couple of other super chats that came in. This is from Peggy, who says, "Hi, Lawrence, love your channel. Thank you. I do as well." It's arrogant in a way, but it's also a show of pride on my part. Any plans of attending Lollapalooza in Grant Park? My daughter is there right now and is loving it. I don't know if there are any music festivals like that in the UK. I'm probably not going to Lollapalooza because I'm 42 now, and my legs don't work as well as they used to. No, I'm joking. I mean, the reason is that I haven't got a reason. Sorry, I'm not going to Lollapalooza, but I love the word. I think it's a fantastic word, and I remember when I used to work downtown at this time of year in Chicago. That is, for those of you who haven't seen the hat, I always forgot Lollapalooza was happening, and then I would just leave my office one day and suddenly be bombarded by hundreds of drunk people. It was like being back home in many ways, and it was always fun, always a fun atmosphere. But I've never been. I've never actually been to Lollapalooza. But as to whether we have similar, festivals back home, I don't know. I'd have to do some research. We definitely have festivals, music festivals. Famously, we have the Glastonbury Music Festival that goes on for days in a field. But I don't know if that's similar to Lollapalooza. I'm a bit out of touch when it comes to all of that. Yeah. All right, but thank you, Peggy. Good question. And another one, I'm going to go back to the questions here in a minute that came in, but just wanted to check in on the super chat. Jennifer says, "Hello, Lawrence. Why do English people mush their peas? Because it's amazing. Mushy peas are something, in fact, that I miss very much. I don't know how to describe them. They're exactly what I just described. So I have described them. They are peas that are mushed up, like mashed potato, but peas, and with salt on them and some other stuff. And you usually have them in the north with fish and chips. And most people who've heard of them but aren't from Britain think they sound disgusting. And people who have heard them and are from Britain think that they are unique cuisine that nobody can beat. And I'm one of those people. All right. So thank you for those lovely comments that came in. And apologies if I've missed any super chats. Things move fast in the world of YouTube live streaming. All right. Back to the questions that came in. Excuse me, frog in my throat there, can't speak. The thing about going live is you can't edit out the crap bits. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Okay, next question. This comes from Bacon Cakes here on YouTube. Great name, and is making me hungry because I've not had dinner yet. If you could swap one thing between Britain and America, what would it be and why? Oh, that is a great question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. Some of these I purposely just didn't prepare an answer. I wanted to just think of it on the spot. And with that, okay, what would I take from Britain and put here? I mean, I've said this before, but probably the interconnected railway system that we have in the UK, even though it's not the best in Europe, it's more connected than what we have here, and usually the trains are faster than what you have here as well. And I miss that, just hopping on a train to get to the nearest place. But I understand the reasons as to why America doesn't have that as well, although to a degree it used to. So I've done a video on it, so check that out. I don't know how to link to it, but it's out there somewhere. So that's what I bring here from Britain. I think there's a lot of things that I would take from the US. Some of them silly things like Arby's, and then just I think the terrain of the country is something that never ceases to amaze me. Not to suggest we don't have wonderful and quite rich terrain in Britain. We do, we very much do, but we don't have a Grand Canyon. We don't have room for the Grand Canyon, more or less. I mean, I think it measures the distance of Brighton to Liverpool. So we do have room. Hint, hint to anybody that wishes to move it over there if you can. So that's the first thing that came to my brain on that question. Move the Grand Canyon to Britain. I shouldn't have had coffee before this. It's a bad idea. It's always a bad idea. Yeah, I will have some more though. Thank you, Lawrence, because I'm full of bad ideas. It's Friday. If you can't have bad ideas and implement them on a Friday, when can you? Can you all hear me all right? Should be able to. Oh, I have just remembered halfway through the live stream. Yeah, got coffee on my mustache. One thing I forgot to do prior to the live stream that I had intended to do was not Swiffer. What's the word? You know, the thing with the lint roll my microphone because it has pieces of cat and dog hair on it. That's so unprofessional. It's Friday. Let me off. Let me off. All right, good. You've let me off, I assume. All right. So the next question, this comes from Foodie23612. Everything's related to food in people's names here on YouTube, it seems. They have a very simple question right now during what is the Olympic Games. I don't know why I put an H in games in Paris. Team GB or Team USA? It's a very good question. And in fact, since I've become a dual citizen of both of those countries, watching the Olympics is insanely enjoyable because, well, if you look at the medal table now, Britain's riding high, actually. We've won more gold medals after this number of days in the Olympics than any time in history, actually. This is our best performance after this amount of days, apparently, according to the BBC. And of course, the USA is always going to dominate in the medal table as well. So I've been able to enjoy both a little bit, although I was up against it yesterday during a very important match in field hockey. I got emotionally invested in field hockey yesterday. Never thought anything like that would happen in my life because the USA versus Great Britain was a match that happened and Britain won 5-2, no less. I don't know any of the players. I don't know what any of it meant, but we won. Now, who was I cheering on during that match? It's a tough one. When Britain scored their first, do you call them goals? I don't know. I don't know the rules of hockey. That's the thing about the Olympics. I've been tuning into all manner of sports that I don't know the rules of. Field hockey was one of them. When it went into the net, we'll say, I did cheer. It was just sort of a very reflexive thing. I was like, "Oh, we've scored a goal!" I didn't go that high pitch, I promise. Otherwise, my dog would have been very dissatisfied with me. But I must say, when the US equalized, I did sort of go, should I cheer? Do I cheer? Do I cheer the fact that they've scored against my homeland, but this is where I live and I'm a citizen of? It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. I think what I do in this situation, though, is I sort of apply the underdog mentality. Like I look at the two and I think, who's the underdog here? And since I don't know anything about field hockey and whether Britain is better at that than America, I go with, well, which country usually does best at the Olympics? America. All right. So Britain's the underdog in my eyes. I think I'll cheer more for them in this scenario. It's the only way I can justify my inclinations towards celebration. But I will say this: when the US is involved in any events that don't involve Britain, it's a very clear-cut thing for me. I cheer for the US. I was watching volleyball the other day. What have I done? I've watched fencing. We won a gold in fencing against Italy yesterday, and I had no idea what was going on or why we got points. But when we did, I cheered like a maniac. Thankfully, I didn't have a sword of my own. Otherwise, things could have got nasty by accident. So, yeah, I've definitely been cheering on Team USA and Team GB. But it seems to be that I wake up when I wake up, Britain's already won its medals for the day because of the time difference, and so I never catch any of them live, which is a bit sad. Anyway, on this very subject, DW has a question. Are there Olympic events where Britons expect to win medals, similar to the way that Americans expect gold in basketball and some other sports. I think cheese rolling would be one. That's where they roll a cheese wheel down a hill in Gloucestershire. I've seen that live. Sadly, it's not an Olympic event yet, but one day maybe it could be. Other than that, though, I think that the real answer is probably something like rowing. Because of course we've got the boat race in Britain, Oxford versus Cambridge, and we've just got a history of being good rowers. And we won the other day. In fact, I think we beat the USA and some other countries to the gold medal in one of them. I mean, there's obviously different races to be run and whatnot, but we won one of the rowing, and we typically do, I imagine, and anything to do with boats really, and horses, not usually at the same time. That would be disastrous, but we are good in those events. All right. So thank you for those questions. Gonna go right back now to the YouTube comments. Looks like they've been coming in. We got another one of the super chats. Thank you for that. This comes from Mitchtopia, who asks, what region of England would you attribute your accent to? This is a very good question. From a Californian dating a woman from Yorkshire, and we can't quite place it. So I did a sort of recording with a bunch of people recently, and they said the same thing. They didn't know where it came from. And I think my accent is a result of all of the places that I've lived, actually, specifically the places in Britain where I lived, because I grew up in Grimsby on the East Coast. It's not quite Grimsby, but I also lived in Lancashire for 4 or 5 years. And I think I picked up a lot of that. And then I moved to London for a while, and I also worked in the theatre as well, where you're doing different accents all the time. So I think I just picked up bits of lots of things, and I can't place it myself. I mean, if you were to draw a triangle of the places I've lived, maybe you could go at the midpoint of those, but I think that takes you to somewhere like Nottingham, and I don't think I'm from there. I don't know. It's weird. I find myself occasionally sounding a little Yorkshire or a little Lancashire and a little Grimsby, but I don't know which I am. I have an identity crisis, and we're not going to resolve it here on this very live stream. And sometimes affectations like that happen by accident. You know, they never used to, but I think I started doing them on YouTube. And then they eventually just became a part of who I am. Sorry, keep it down there, Lawrence. They gave me a note beforehand. Don't go high pitched. It doesn't read well with people's ears. Did I listen? Do I ever listen? What do you mean I don't ever? I do listen, especially to you, because you could end this whole thing at any second. I'm talking to a wall. For those of you interested, thank you for that. And it looks like we might have had some other ones. I'm all over the place. Usually I have my wife helps me with all of this, but now I'm doing it on my own. Snowwolf says, hi, when are you doing the rest of the hard to pronounce city names? Washington is waiting. A lot of people have asked me this. What happened here, right? It's not my fault. It is my fault, but it's not entirely my fault. So for those of you who don't know, previously, probably about 2 years ago or before then, I was doing a series where I went through each of the states in America, and I had to try to pronounce hard to pronounce place names in the US. And I got up to, I don't remember where, was it Georgia? Somewhere like that. And then it abruptly stopped. And the reason that it abruptly stopped, I can't speak now. It's getting bad. The reason that it abruptly stopped is that I moved house and all of that craziness out, and I got a dog, and it just threw me off. And when we moved house, I went into all of the sort of videos about my first American house, and so it was just it got away from me. But I think I'll get back to it at some point. I just don't know when, because it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. A lot of those places are incredibly hard to pronounce. So, yeah. Okay. Thank you for those super chats. Keep them coming. I'm going to go back to the comments and questions that came in prior to the live stream. And let's see what we've got now. This is from The Thane on YouTube, who says, what one thing, why can't I speak? What one thing would you bring back to Britain from America and vice versa? So similar a little bit to the question from earlier, but I think that obviously it wouldn't be food. Because there are non-perishable foods that I'd bring, but it's really not that. I think I bring my family, not to get too sentimental, but then that would mean uprooting their lives and forcing them to live in a foreign country when they've not chosen to do so. So really, that would be mean. So I don't know what one thing would I bring here. Well, we've already established that I would bring the Grand Canyon to Britain, but I think one thing, I think of objects when I think of this question. I think it's quite distinct from the one earlier. I think that from Britain, probably just stuff that's in my. You know what? Actually, I know what it would be. In Britain, at my mum's house, I have a gold medal. And I wanted to bring it here so that I could use it in tomorrow's YouTube short, which is a little bit about, well, you'll see. You need to watch the short. I'm not going to spoil it for you. But I wanted to have that medal so that I could use it as a prop, and I don't have it here. So immediately, that's what I bring. It's not a medal for any kind of sports because I haven't run since 1985. But it is for art. I got an art prize when I was 11 years old, and I should have brought it. Speaking of 11 years old, got my little work here. This isn't a true indication of some of the artwork that we're talking about. I was good with a pencil. All right, but so I bring that. But in terms of what would I bring back from America if I was to go over there? Everything. My whole life's here, isn't it? Except for that medal. And I would have to take everything back with me, including 2 pets, dog and a cat. I don't know how that works. Haven't looked into it. I know that it's quite tricky. And then you've got to board them onto a plane. I'm just thinking of my dog on a plane. And my cat. Oh gosh, my cat would hate it. He would hate that. Anyway, onto that later. What would I bring? It would be everything in this house, and the house. I'd take the house with me, which is probably against the law, actually. But I would brick by brick. We'd move it over there, or sell it. We'd sell it. That would be easier, and buy a nice little house in the Cotswolds. Not that that's on the horizon, but I was just answering the question. Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. Here's a question. This is from Andrew, also on YouTube, who asks, why do some Americans refer to going to Europe as if it's one place? There's a big difference, between, say, Milan and Glasgow, unless you're in Illinois, where you have both a Milan and a Glasgow. But I see what you're saying. You're right. Europe's a big continent, isn't it? Although, going back to this book, look at that. Europe, but Britain. And it's not the whole of the UK either, is it? There's no Northern Ireland. So this is young Lawrence. So this is how I viewed Europe back then. I was 11. I mean, you got to let me off. I didn't know too much. What the heck is that? Germany fell out of there. I don't know what that is or what it does. And I did all of the flags in there. Can you see this? Can everybody see this? Look at what I thought England was. I hope there are no Scottish or Welsh people or even Northern Irish people on this live stream. Otherwise, I may lose a lot of subscribers in those countries. But again, forgive me. I didn't know anything. I was an idiot. I mean, I still am an idiot. But back then, I was a prize idiot because I wasn't yet a human, still a child. Right. And that was it. But to answer the question, I think it's well-meaning. I don't think Americans are. I don't necessarily think it's a show of ignorance. I think a lot of the time when Americans visit Europe, they visit multiple countries, right? So the UK, France, Germany, let's say, right, in one trip to get them all out of the way. And so, in that sense, it's sort of quicker to say Europe as opposed to the three countries I just named. And so, maybe that's why partly that happens. But I think also you could flip it on its head. When we visit, I do this, right? I talk about America a lot of the time, but my experience day to day in America is really here in this pocket of the Midwest. It's not, it's not accurate, or it's not specific enough to say I live in America. Some people want to know which state, because some states, of course, are as big as countries in Europe. Um, the US, I think, is reasonably close in size to Europe, the continent, depending on whether you include the entire landmass of Russia. But yeah, but the part without Russia, it's close in size, I think, isn't it, to the US? So if you want to do a like for like comparison, you would break down the US by states and be more specific in those sense. But most of us wouldn't say that, I think. I mean, maybe we would. I think it depends. Again, I think if you were to do a road trip across the US, you would simply say, I'm going to America. I'm doing a road trip across America. If you're doing a fortnight in Florida, you would say that. And I've known a lot of people, Americans, who've gone to London, who've said simply, I'm visiting the UK, because that's their only point of destination. It's not, a case that they are seeing multiple European countries, so they don't bother saying, I'm going to Europe. There may be people that say I'm going to Europe as a catch-all term for England. I don't know, but I think typically that's not the way. Yeah. Okay. Good question though. This is from Feline Magic 4473. Would you say there are more cat people than dog people in Great Britain? Well, given your name, I've got some bad news for you. I think, well, this doesn't necessarily answer your question, but I can tell you that in the UK, there are roughly 13.5 million domestic dogs, compared with about 11 million cats. So it suggests to me that people, generally speaking, are more interested in dogs than cats. I mean, it's pretty close. But then again, I suppose it could be that some people have multiple dogs, and it brings the numbers up. I don't know. I haven't looked that far into it. I will say that this bears out in the US too, that dogs are more popular than cats. That said, there are more cats in this country than there are people in the UK. It's about 80 odd million cats in this country. And there's a big difference as well, I think, over whether we allow those cats to be outdoor cats or not. It's more likely in the UK, and I would say much of Europe, that they will be outdoor cats. You see outdoor cats in the UK all the time. In America, not so much. You do see it, but not as much. If I were to weight them, it's definitely Britain who comes out on top there. But I'm a cat and a dog person myself, so I again speak from relative experience, I suppose, on that. And before we go into the final questions there, I'm going to just check back in with you all. How are you all doing? Looks like you're all good. 745 of you on this live stream. It's weird to me. I don't do public live streams very often. I do secret live streams over on my Patreon, and we usually, because it's Patreon, it's a smaller, tight knit community. We only get sort of 20 to 30 people. So when I see 744, it takes me back a little bit. Anyway, so yeah, let me check in with the super chats. Did we get any more of those? Tara, did we? She's not here. So I don't know the answer to that. Okay, great. Back to the questions then, because we've got a few more to go through here. And where is it? Cynthia asks, and this is on YouTube, how come you haven't been to Milwaukee? And I think Cynthia must know something that I don't, because I thought I had been to Milwaukee twice. Um, I get questions like this quite often, and it always is very surprising, because I always think to myself, "Wh- how do you know something about me that isn't true?" I don't know if I don't know if people watch my videos and think that I don't do stuff outside of my videos, because obviously, I am a human, despite contrary reports. I've been to Milwaukee twice. The first time I went was for my anniversary, which unfortunately is in the month of February. And anybody who's spent any time around the Great Lakes during the month of February knows that you shouldn't visit the Great Lakes in the month of February. And I live in Chicago, so I know that very well. Heading an hour north, it's only going to get colder, and it was an absolutely freezing couple of days. And thankfully, my wife is a big fan of the winter, despite the air conditioning preferences, and she was fine with it. I, I was less fine. I wasn't used to the clothes I was supposed to wear yet. I didn't have the right winter clothes. And not again, just to reiterate, back in Britain, you get nothing like what you get here in January and February, where it's horrendous. It's not fit for humans. But yet we pretend it is. So we went up to Wisconsin on a bus. We went on the bus. That was a fun experience. Megabus. That was a fun experience. Fun in quotations. I think that was the journey where we didn't even get to sit together. I had to sit next to somebody who was taking up half of my seat and wouldn't relent on that. It was a fun time. It was a very cold time, but that was the first time. And then the second time I went to Milwaukee was for a funeral. On the plus side, the weather was nice. I didn't get to experience it though, because I was in a funeral home, and then we just drove back the next day. So unfortunately, those are my experiences. But I went to a nice German pub in Milwaukee. That's the thing you'll find about this country. And I think I saw a few questions that came in for this Q&A. Do you miss British pubs? Yes, I do. Even though I no longer drink, I do miss them from a kind of atmospheric standpoint. But you can 50% find recreations of that atmosphere here in those authentic British pubs, authentic German pubs, Irish pubs, whatever. But there's an Americanization of those things that you just often won't see in Britain. It's the pictures of Queen Victoria plastered all over the wall. We don't do that. I think the reason we don't do that is that we don't need to show off that our pubs are British, because we know they're in Britain. Whereas here, I think that in order just to push the fact that, yes, this is, a kind of replication of the kind of pubs you'll have in Britain, we just need to add a few bells and whistles just so you get it, right? So you'll go into the toilet. This happened to me. Sorry, Mike. That's not a person called Mike. That's my microphone. I don't know. Coffee Friday, right? I knew a place. I knew a person, a pub in Indianapolis called McNiven's, and you go into the toilet. I don't know if it's still the same, and they have in the cubicle there a picture of Ewan McGregor staring at you while you're trying to do your business. And this is a Scottish themed pub, so it sort of makes sense, but it's just really weird when that happens. And there's all manner of different blokes. That same pub, you're coming out of the queue, there's a picture of Halle Berry in James Bond. And all I could think was the only connection there is Sean Connery was Scottish, but he wasn't even the Bond in that film. So I don't know. It was weird. It was weird. But yeah, usually it's Churchill. Just a big picture of Churchill there doing that. But you don't mind it because you've got your pint, you're watching your football. Because that's the thing about these pubs, they often have the match on, Premier League. Here in Chicago, you find those everywhere, actually. There's lots of them. Yeah, so it's useful. I think I got off track there. The question was about Milwaukee. German pubs. Yep. Great. Thank you for that, Cynthia. And then Lisa, still here on YouTube, says, this is a curious question, but I wanted to include it because it got me thinking. Why do Brits seem fixated on Texas, the state of Texas? And I thought to myself, are we? I don't know. I'm myself not particularly fixated on Texas. I'm not particularly fixated on any one state, except for those that I've lived in, I suppose. But then I stopped and thought about it, and recently I have seen quite a lot of YouTubers that are sort of in my wheelhouse. You know, the types of YouTubers that compare Britain and America and all of that. And now that I think about it, quite a lot of them have done Texas heavy content and have displayed deep enthusiasm for the state. And you'd have to ask them where it comes from for them. But I think that one thing I would say here is that when back in Britain, when we think of America, I think there are probably 3 states, maybe 4 states that we are very familiar with by name. One of them is Florida, because a lot of us go visit Florida due to the presence of Disney World and just Orlando in general, right? Another is New York, simply because of New York City. Another is California for numerous reasons, I would say. Hollywood, the tech industry, Disneyland. But the other is probably Texas, I would say, due to the actually, and I used to do this, due to the association with cowboys is a big thing. Growing up in Britain on the playground, I used to pretend to be a cowboy, and I used to dress up as a cowboy and all of this stuff. It was fascinating because obviously we'd had Western movies and stuff that sort of popularized that idea, even if they didn't take place in Texas. I think that the association we have of cowboys is Texas. And so that could have happened. We also, believe it or not, we were very much into Dallas, the TV show. Everyone was obsessed with it in the 80s. And JR was, I can't say that word because they might ding me, but we all know what happened to JR. Many of us don't remember who did it, but it happened anyway. So that was a big thing in Britain, not just here. People were obsessed with Dallas, and so I just think that that plays into our knowledge. I think you won't get the same sort of thing out of Arkansas because it's just not culturally, it's not been pushed to us, and there's not major theme parks on the level of your Disney worlds and all that in places like that. Yeah, I don't know, and I suppose there's just a number of reasons, but I think I've probably listed most of them there. And then there's the barbecue element of Texas as well that seems to be of some interest to a lot of people. So I imagine it's to do with quite a lot of those things. But if you can think of any other ideas, or indeed if you are British and you have a fixation with Texas, let me know. I will say this. When we're on YouTube, we get into these bubbles, don't we? We get into these niches. I have this niche of talking about America and comparing Britain and America. And so I will see others doing that, and I will be aware that those people are very interested in Texas. But I think to say that the entire country of Britain has an enthusiasm for Texas in that way would not be true. I don't think that most British people give it much thought at all. But here on this corner of YouTube, I suppose you will see it more regularly. Okay, Sal on X, formerly known as Twitter, says, considering your experience with Britain and the US, what are your thoughts on Canada? And anybody who's a patron of Lost in the Pond will know, because we talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, I actually want to do a video down the road where we look at certainly linguistic comparisons between the US, Britain, and Canada. Just because it's right there. I mean, it's north of me, isn't it? And there's a lot to say. And I think that they have different terminology to both the US and Britain, but they share a lot of the terminology with both countries as well. And when I say both countries, I mean that they'll use the British English term for some things and then the American English term for other things. And it's quite fascinating how there's that divide, I think. So I definitely want to do that and maybe collaborate with someone over it. We'll see. And then finally, this is from Ranieri, I think it's pronounced, here on YouTube. Why do Brits say Tuesday instead of Tuesday? And it seems completely inappropriate to ask that on a Friday, but I'm doing it anyway, or I'm at least going to try to answer it. I don't know the real answer, but I think that the way it's written, I think it just compels us to do it a little bit. I don't know when the divergence happened. If it is the case that when 400 years ago, before English colonists moved to the US, I don't know if back then we were completely pronouncing it Tuesday. I will say this: there are people in Britain that do pronounce it Tuesday. And those that do pronounce it Tuesday, sometimes I think it's a regional thing. I grew up saying Tuesday in Grimsby, but I don't know. I have all the answers. I did a quick search before this live stream to see if there was any kind of etymological history behind, or not etymological, but phonetic history to why we do, and I couldn't really find anything. I imagine that this is something that probably emerged in British English in the last 400 years because it's not seen in American English. Or it could be that it did exist with those first people that came here on the Mayflower, or even before on those other for those other settlements. It could be that it did exist at that time, and America just rejected it, or it evolved. I'd have to do more of a study into it. But it's YouTube. I go back and forth on YouTube. I will sometimes say YouTube. And I noticed earlier on as well, I said New York instead of New York. And I think with that, the reason I've done that sort of by accident over time is it's just very hard to say Y twice. New York, right? So that sounded weird. Sounded like I was throwing up. Won't do that again. But I think that's why I do it. No, it's not why I do it. I don't know why I do it. I don't know why any of us do it. I hope that was helpful. Okay, so back to the live stream. It looks like we're up here now, and we've got still 833. I'm amazed that you're still watching, but thank you. I really appreciate it. And I missed several super chats, so I'm going to go and look at all those super chats right now. How do I do it? How do I look at that? How do I go there? There used to be a thing at the top. Show me super chats. Uh-oh. We're back. Thank you for the reminder. There's one. Okay, I'm going to just scroll through them. This is from Goku-son. I'm just reading it fast. So DBZ. Says, greetings from West Virginia. Been a fan for 2 years. Oh, great. Nice. I love it when people know how long they've been a fan for. That it's it almost makes it an event to me that people are subscribing. I love that. Great. Let me scroll back up. I love that. And Scotty Orange says, what do you call the ground floor of a building? I don't remember. I think now I say the first floor, because there's a difference, isn't there, in both countries? What is it we say? I can't remember which way around it is. In Britain, we say, do we say the ground floor and then the first floor? What do we do? Just let me know. Remind me. That's the thing about all this research. You fill your brain with so much stuff that you can't remember which country does what sometimes. And I don't go out of the house very often, so I don't remember. But thank you for that question, Scotty. If anybody else can get my head straight on that. But I think I say the ground floor still. Is that the British way? I can't remember. It's been a while. Okay, scrolling up here. This super chat comes from John, who says, ever watch a rocket launch in the US? Yes, I have. I'm very proud to be able to answer affirmatively on that. I was 9 years old I wasn't living here yet. I visited Florida for a fortnight. I think I referenced that earlier. And we went to Cape Canaveral, and I was sunburned so badly because I'm British. And so I just watched from inside the car that we'd rented, a Buick Skylark, and the rocket was taking off, I think, across some water, as I recall. Um, that seems right, but then again, Mandela effect. And it was quite mind blowing to see it there in the flesh, even if some of my flesh had peeled off. It was amazing. I've never forgotten that. And we captured a really terrible photo of it going up because I think it was a nighttime launch. Is that a real thing? Or have I made that up as well? Anyway, it was a launch and it was amazing. I love space. I love anything to do with it. Um, I think that tells you everything you need to know. It was a gift, but still. Um, yeah, so I did. I saw a rocket launch there, and that was a bucket list thing, even at that age. So that's done. So thanks for that question, John. And this comes from Tony, who says, Lawrence, you need to take up the fun winter activities that we have in the Midwest, like skiing, snowblowing, ice fishing, etc. Have fun instead of hiding. So I have fun by hiding. I think that's actually partly my strategy for coping with the winter. But actually, I have some sensational hiking boots that really do keep my feet warm and prevent any precipitation from getting on my feet. And so, since I bought those, it's been a game changer. And I actually do enjoy going out into the Midwestern winters a little bit. This year, I've not had to worry about it. We've had barely any snow, but it's been. I don't mind it as much. But in terms of doing little events, I don't know. I've got a sled in my garage. I've got two of them, two sleds in my garage. Might use one of them at some point down the road. And let's go up here. Any others? How many did I miss? Let's go. Lots. I was definitely in my zone reading the questions, wasn't I? This is from Octavia, who says, did you happen to see a tornado a few weeks ago? I didn't, but I was definitely in that tornado warning where we had to come down to our shelter. We've had so many of them since 2020. I must have had about 10 tornado warnings since then. I had to go down to basement. And prior to that, I hadn't had one in years. Chicago just seemed to not have any after I first moved here for about 4 years. And then they all came at once, but I've still never seen a tornado with my own eyes. People say that, well, you don't really want to, obviously, because they're scary and they cause a lot of damage. But I'd love to just sort of I'd love to see one in a massive field where there are no people and no one gets hurt. It just happens. It emerges for like a minute and then disappears. I know that's not going to happen because I'm a pretty good understanding of the life cycles of the year average tornadoes. But in my magical thinking world, I'd love that because I've never seen one. It would be awe-inspiring. I think it'd be terrifying, though. I do remember 4 years ago when we had the first of these tornado warnings here in the Midwest. I kept looking out of my window while I was, trying to get everyone situated down in the basement. So I had my cat, getting him in the basket, and didn't have a dog then, but getting my wife down. Well, she got herself downstairs. I don't put her in a basket. That'd be weird. But while I was just doing all that, sorting everything out while we were trying to get to the basement, which we make a habit of doing it because you just never know. I kept taking a glance out the window just in case there was a tornado there. It was, but every time that happens, it's both scary and captivating. It's like, oh no, it's just a cloud, But one of these days, maybe it won't just be a cloud. So that was very ominous sounding. I'm sure it's going to be fine. Okay. Just going to tweak. That's not a word, I hope. I'm going to keep looking through the comments here. Is that it? Am I done? I don't know if I am. If I missed any super chats, I completely apologize. They're very hard to keep up with in real time when we have nearly 1,000 people on, and I'm switching between tabs. But I think there's one more. Says the fat hipster. Thank you. Where is it? Why can't I see him? How do I do this? Oh, wait, I think I go there. No, I don't. I am so rubbish at this. I am really rubbish at YouTube. Can't believe it, can you? What's that? No. Oh, no. Oh, that's so bad. These are bad. Top chat. What's that? Oh, wait, is it that? I found it. Everybody, I found it. I found it. We're good. This is from Du Bois, who says from Florida, have you been to a college football game? Yes, I have actually. I went to see the Butler. It was at Butler University, I think, years ago. I don't remember anything about it except we were in a relatively big stadium. I don't think it was that big actually, and I don't remember what the score was because everybody at that time was so captivated by the Butler Bulldogs' run to the college basketball final. Everything was about the basketball team, and that's all I remember. Yeah. So, excuse me. No, we've got a couple of others, it looks like, that I missed. So let me go back quickly. This is from the fat hipster who was just trying to remind me. Thank you. Beautiful. I recognize the giant sticker on your computer. I worked there for 2 years while in high school. Are you aware of the current drama surrounding it? What are we saying? The what? Which one is it? The giant sticker. We mean what? Where is it? This? What do we mean? There's a lot of stickers. These are just ones I've collected over the years, so I'm probably not familiar with any of the drama. I try to keep out of drama. Ironically, given that I was a drama student in the past. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you, Scott, for that super chat, and also to MJ. And what else did we have? Yes, I think I covered that one. And let's see any others. Making high pitch sounds again. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah. And it looks like Snowwolf also had a question about those hard to say city names. So yeah, hopefully I will get back to that at some point. And then Pete says, do you plan? We'll finish with this one. Do you plan to retire in the US? I don't know. There's no way I can really answer that right now. I'm quite a sort of I'm a happy-go-lucky type person. I'm a run by the seat of your pants type person. That I don't necessarily have plans for where I will retire. I'm happy with the notion that I could end up living in Japan for all I know. It's one of these days. But right now, I love living where I live. And I suspect that that's unlikely to change, at least anytime soon. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I'll retire. Don't know if I'll retire. Maybe I'll be doing YouTube until I'm 106. I did one of those death clock things years ago. It said that I'll be 106 when I die. And we all know those things are accurate. So that's what I'm going with. Actually, one more before we go. This is from Lee. Super chat came in just now. Did you go to the Indy 500 when you lived in Indianapolis? And if so, what did you think of it? From me in Stockport, England, just south of Manchester. I've been to the stadium. I've never been to the 500 itself because I've never had any interest in race driving. It doesn't do it for me. It's the noise. I'm not good with noises. So maybe I'd watch it with earplugs in. But I've heard from a lot of people that you just get drunk and like the cars whiz past you and you don't really know what's happening. So yeah, I mean that was more or less my experience with baseball, except it wasn't a car, it was a ball that I couldn't even see. So I concentrated heavily on the hot dog and the beer. 6 beers, I think it was. That's it for this live stream. Thank you. It's that was a good hour. That went very quick, or at least it did for me. I hope it went quickly for you as well. Don't answer that. And there are more videos coming, including a new short tomorrow night. But I'm working on several other videos that are going to go out in the month of August. This has been fabulous. Thank you. I think I even smiled once during this, so that's an improvement upon the last 2 years. And I will see you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye. And tell everybody else to go and watch this live stream back. Bye. How do you end it? It's really, it's that one. End. Every time.